Namaste. When we're performing any duties, domestic duties in the temple, it is okay not to be wearing our robes, but we must always have this over our shoulder, like so, just out of respect. This is why this is my attire in this heat. But people have often asked, how do you put these robes on? Well, there are two ways. Well, two ways in the official tradition, which I'll show you. And then also a different way one wears robes more informally in India, where they tend to wear their robes all of the time. When I say they, we, monks, tend to wear our robes all of the time. In Thailand, you only really wear them in the temple or when you're being offered dana. Most of the time you're just wearing this angsa, this kind of vest, little piece of cloth, because it's so hot. But it's hot here too. I'll show you quickly how they wear them in India, and then I'll put my robe on properly as we wear it in Thailand. Bear with me. We row in Thailand in this fashion. So the nice simple way one can do this Indian style is like this. Flip this over there. Wear the robe thus, nice and easy, yes? Also quite cool, free and relaxing. You can move around unrestricted. I hope you can hear me because the mic's down there. Then also in the temple in India, because one covers the left side with the right shoulder exposed, one hooks this side over there, so it starts to look more similar how you see me wearing it more formally. So in the temple, for chanting, for any official ceremonies, one would wear it thus. In Thailand, it's a little bit more of an ordeal. One would take it this way. I'll show you firstly how we wear it when out in the city, out in town, anywhere outside of the monastery grounds, where we are exposed to the public. So we're not to be exposed to the public. We are to cover ourselves from neck down to ankles, down to wrists, as you will see. Not sure quite how this fares with this whole video thing. I've seen monks with very little on. Well, including myself, it's so hot, but this is where you're coming into the temple, as if you were to visit the temple, the monastery, come within the monastery grounds. We wouldn't suddenly dress in parimandala, as it is called, which means all around, in a way I'm about to demonstrate. Soprano is outside there, smiling through the window. Probably wondering what on earth he's doing. So we flick it over our shoulder, thus. And as you see, I've done this many times, so you get quite used to it. Now, it should be that it circles all around, thus. I've got it a little high, it should be around this ankle level. So we're out on arms round. There's a little tag unfastens here. And I've always avoided doing this. So it's about time I did my duty, because I'm always being asked, Then our bowl over our shoulder this way when we're walking into town. And when we're receiving alms, we pop our bowl over this shoulder, inside, so it's covered. And to receive alms, we open like this. So it's all a bit like a magical cloak. So as you see, I'm covered from top to toe, like that. Okay? Now, in the temple, ordinarily speaking, we expose our right shoulder, just covering our left side, and this is how you'd normally see me in action, so to speak. Unless I'm being informal, then I would just be in my anger. Am I actually on camera, Supanyo, do you think? I'm not sure. Looking at the camera there. I'm a little fascinated. So we flip it over like this. And this is what you're familiar with in the Thai Forest tradition style. And we can tighten it up, straighten it up nicely. I like to pull this piece down the back a little bit. And then this is how we wear our robes. So, having done that, I'll go to the temple now. I've already bowed, I'll bow again, paying my respects to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and also the founder of this organisation, Bhante Dhammarakkhita, whose name was Bhante Dhammarakkhita Buddharakkhita. So, as they still say here in India, in that quaint BBC 1950s fashion, without further ado, it's like the World Service sometimes here, I will continue with our questions and answers. I have an audience today, I have Supanyo. Now look, I've got two questions. Every time we come to this, I skip them and say, oh, that's a bit long. I'll come to that next time. We'll make a whole talk about it. But if I keep doing that, we'll never get round to it. It's just reading the question I'm avoiding, not the answer. That can be quite short. So I'm going to crack straight on and read the question. Is the camera still going? Okay? Excellent. It's good to have someone to check that. I think a third or fourth or fifth failure this week will probably be the finish of it for me. No, not at all. It's no trouble, really. Okay, that's not the question I was looking for. It's about killing insects. So we'll just warm up on that one. Look, this person's been killing all kinds of insects. Rice weevils, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Plant pests, and mosquitoes, the usual, and their larvae. And rats, quite a variety of creatures there, and also includes into the equation viruses and bacteria. Right, let me clear that one up. Viruses and bacteria we do not consider as sentient beings. So we also have them in our bodies and are naturally, not intentionally killing them off, but also giving them a home. This is beyond our control. We don't cover those. Sentient beings are such creatures that are like us. They have the desire to live. I mean, I'm sure so do bacteria and viruses, otherwise they wouldn't be so prolific. But we have no, like plants, we have no deep understanding. As Buddhist monks, we are not allowed to kill plants. This is why we don't, as Buddhist monks, do gardening. But it's still not a precept. It's not a killing as in the first precept. It's just an extra layer of caution, just in case if we were to cut the grass each blade of grass was screaming, like in that well-known Roald Dahl Tales of the Unexpected TV series episode of the 1970s, which was quite horrific when these poor screaming plants all over the place were hollering every time the lawnmower went over, and the trees or the plants, the flowers were picked. And if you could only imagine that was the case, life would be very difficult indeed. But we don't have to imagine that with so far as animals and where they are concerned, whether they be pests. You know, some people will consider rats as pests, others pets. Many people have rats as pets, or guinea pigs, or rabbits, which are equally vermin in the same classification, and we often think of squirrels as pretty little beautiful creatures. But the grey squirrel in England, where I come from, back some time ago, I must hasten to add, in my, and shamefully, days when I still was, well, dare I say it, hunting, shooting, fishing, not in the hunting on a horse with a fox after, no, with a dog after a fox kind of hunting, but actually going out on shoots for shooting pheasants, all for fair game, as they say, game being wild food you kill yourself, you catch and eat. So all food that was eaten, it wasn't for sport, albeit it is a kind of sport. In that time, so going back 20 years now, it was fair game to shoot squirrels, not for food, but because they were vermin and causing so much damage in the countryside, and farmers would in fact invite you onto their land to shoot squirrels. So as you can imagine, this goes on. But your question is this, do you actually ask the question? And spiders, you've been killing all of these things. Is this against the 5 precepts? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I was breaking the first and most important precept when I shot a pheasant or I shot a rabbit back in the day. And I regret that. I will pay for it karmically, no doubt, in many rebirths, unless I can really make up for it in this lifetime. But it was for food, it was for my family, it was for survival. Literally, I was living this way for some time. When I was living in the forest, living hand to mouth. Food I could forage or hunt for. It was part of the build-up to where I am today, this practice, answering another question that comes later on. How did you end up here? Well, I started off living on my own in a little Jeep wagon with a canvas top and a gun and a spade, living in the wilds, in the forests, digging up potatoes in farmers' fields and boiling them up with some onions I could forage. Not strictly forage, that's stealing, so it's breaking another precept if you think about it. But they were often what's left after the harvest, just laying on the ground, which would just go to rot or the birds would eat. So I just picked those up and shooting the odd rabbit, skinning it, roasting it, shooting a pheasant, which was stealing because they were for the organised shoots. It's not called stealing in my country, it's called poaching. But I was a poacher, if you like, and then turned gamekeeper because I went to work for the farm to stop people doing this. And that's how I ended up working eventually in security. But that's another story, by the by, and I'm still avoiding that long question that's coming up, aren't I? But any killing is killing. It must not be done. It is breaking the first precept for whatever reason. My answer was, yes, intentionally killing any sentient beings is breaking the first precept without exception. Bacteria and viruses are not considered sentient. And my suggestion is just try not to kill from now on, and you will be keeping Sila. And this is what we must do. Maintain Sila, moral virtue, keeping the 5 precepts of no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, lying or taking of intoxicants, and that is the firm grounding foundation for our practice of meditation. I wouldn't have been able to have meditated at all or developed any kinds of samadhi in the time when I was killing for whatever reason, whether you're killing an ant or a spider or a rat, or whether you are hunting for your food, because that is going to be on your mind. You are going to have it there in the back of your mind that you have caused and done actual harm. It's no good. And we pay for all of our bad actions. We have to accept we reap what we sow. So let's get on to this long question. I just gave a long answer to a short question. Okay, here goes. I have been meditating for the last 12 years on a fairly regular basis, sitting between 30 and 40 minutes a day. For the last month or so, I have been sitting for 45 minutes every morning. Recently, based on your advice, I've added 15 to 20 minutes at night. Well done, jolly good. Excellent. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. My problem is that I would not describe my meditation as particularly deep. I feel I have plateaued and I'm not sure why. Perhaps it is not that important, but I hear so much about it in some Dharma talks. So much about it in some Dharma talks. What? I suppose you're maybe referring to jhanas and deeper meditation. If I read on, do you have any suggestions on how I can go about getting a deeper meditation? Question mark. Yeah, please include question marks in your questions. That sounds like an obvious thing, but we don't always. If you do, then they will come to the top of my, what do you call it, the comments. I can search for questions and I think that's how it finds them sometimes, because then I can separate them from all of the other comments. And then carrying on, I drink coffee in the morning before meditation. Could that be a problem? Let's deal with that first. It could be if you're susceptible to caffeine. Some people are quite used to it. I drink a lot of coffee, so it has a little effect on me. In fact, not having coffee might make me a little, I don't know, irritable. Dare I say it, that sounds like I have a bad addiction. It's not quite that bad, I'm exaggerating a little. I do like to have a cup of coffee. It's a stimulant, it might help to keep you awake. When we're sitting nisichik, which is all night, is really a Thai derivative of the word. I don't know the exact Pali word, but when you're sitting all night without laying down is the practice. It's one of the 13 Jutanga practices we are allowed. Still an ascetic practice that the Buddha allowed for us monks to still do as a very conducive practice towards developing samadhi. So we sit up all night. This is called nisichik, and we will have coffee at midnight to help, or cocoa. It's a stimulant. It helps to keep us bright and awake. In the morning, I think, you might have that before meditation. I would suggest, though, with your morning meditation, as I do myself, and I suggest to anybody, don't do anything, actually. When you get up, wake up, get out of bed, sit in your meditation spot and meditate immediately. Don't clean your teeth, don't wash your face, don't make a cup of coffee or put the kettle on. The minute you do any of those other things, you are distracting yourself. Other things will come into your mind that will then proliferate throughout your meditation. This is the ideal opportunity to sit with a clean, empty mind and a fresh start without proliferation of any thoughts about the oncoming day, so the future. You've got little to bother you about the past other than yesterday because you've been asleep for 6, 8, 12 hours, whatever. So now is a great time to just get up out of bed, sit and meditate and enjoy. You will enjoy it. This is, quickly, I'll answer another question I know is coming up later. What do you do about little sleep and lying in? Well, if you meditate a lot, I'll answer 2 or 3 questions in one go. How long do I meditate for is one question. 6 to 9 hours every day. This is because I have time to do so. Now I manage that in either 2-hour or 3-hour sitting sessions. Usually from early in the morning, 3 till 6, and then in late morning, 9 till 12, and then in the afternoon, 3 till 6, except today I'm doing this, and then in the evening, 9 till 12, or 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. So 3, 4, 3-hour sessions. That's a bit more, but usually it works out at 6 to 9 hours every day. If you meditate quite a bit, it's more restorative than sleep. You need less sleep. So that's how you deal with that. How do you deal with, the question was, not being able to lie in? This person likes to lie in. Well, if you just for a few times get up, forget the lying in, and do as I say, no interruptions, straight from bed to sitting to meditating, you will find it so enjoyable and so restorative and such a good start to your day, you will want to get up in future. You will not want to lie in. The minute you wake up, away you go, you start meditating. Brings me on to another question I was asked, and that is, so copying these questions into a format where I can read them easily and take out some of the extra stuff is quite a good idea, because they pop up in my mind without me even having to look. And one of those questions was, what is the first thing you do every day? What is the first thought you have? Me, being that person asking me my first thought every day. Well, actually, I try, and often, most often, this is the case, because I've been doing it for years now. The first thing I bring my attention to is the breath. As soon as I awake, I breathe in like that. That's the start of my practice for the day. That is the start of my meditation. As soon as I'm more conscious, I breathe in like that through my nose, and I bring absolutely my full attention to that and nothing else. Or at least at the earliest opportunity. Obviously, if I'm woken because there's a bigger noise or an alarm or a telephone or something ringing or a knock on the door, I might first think, "Oh, what's that?" But then before I react, that was long, deep, slow breathing in. And I might do that 2 or 3 times because I really enjoy it. And that really gets me off to a good start each and every day. So that's the answer. What I do every day is the first thing that comes into my mind, and what I do. So there's a few questions answered there. Now back to your question, subscriber. You are practicing very well with this regular, timed routine of meditation. It's sufficient time for a lay person. It doesn't need to be the hours that I'm talking about in my own practice. If you're meditating at least 1 half-hour session, you're meditating 2 or 3 45-minute sessions, and an extra 15-20 minutes in the evening is such good practice for a lay person who has many other duties to carry out each and every day. There's nothing wrong with that. However, what can happen is like anything else. Even when your meditation is very enjoyable, things can become perfunctory. We perform them out of routine because we get gratification and enjoyment from them, but they become a kind of mechanical process rather than a continuing, growing, organically forming development of peace, tranquility, calmness, and gratification, satisfaction in that sense, which is deepening and encouraging you towards those deeper levels of samadhi. The deeper levels of samadhi you're talking about that you're not perhaps naturally slipping into yet, you're hitting this plateau or barrier, is only really part of the 5 hindrances. Now it sounds like that's oversimplifying it, but it is not. The 5 hindrances are sensual desire, so wanting something you're not having. You're wanting your meditation to develop and become deeper. Aversion, you're not wanting it to stay the same and for you to be meditating in a perfunctory way, which maybe you're not realizing because you're putting in the effort, right effort, which is part of the Noble Eightfold Path. It's right before right mindfulness, right samadhi. You're putting in the effort, but too much effort, too much trying. Let it flow. You can mix it up a little, change the time a little, or maybe shorten the time, lengthen the time, change where you're sitting. Anything to just slightly alter it. Now, I'm not saying you vary from your routine, you decrease. If anything, you increase, but you just spice it up a little bit. You know, people say this same kind of thing, and I dare I say it as a monk, but about their love lives, for instance. They need to spice things up occasionally. It becomes perfunctory, you know? It's the same with meditation. In fact, meditation is so much better. But one can have the same problems. And then on the next of the hindrances, the third, is actually just tiredness. And in this case, it can be equated to, well, it's getting a bit boring, which is why it seems to plateau. You know, again, one can equate this to a relationship. Then restlessness and worry, you know, when you're not achieving results that you're expecting, and this is the problem, expectation, you will become restless and worry about it. Why? Because you're worrying about all the effort you've put in the past, not leading to anything, and you're restless because you're not getting anywhere about the future. And this is where the fifth of the 5 hindrances comes in, doubt. You're doubting your practice. Well, there's no need to doubt. Sit back, relax. You're putting in the effort. You're doing the work. It will come. You will develop deeper samadhi. Beginning with, if you have an understanding, there are, I don't like to use these labels, but there are kind of 4 stages of samadhi, leading to the first of the 4 rupa jhanas. The rupa jhanas being physical jhanas, and then the arupa jhanas, another 4, are being of a mental, a thought process nature. Don't get too involved with thinking about that. That is just creating more expectation. Expect nothing. Just enjoy what you have. Like when I wake up in the morning every day and breathing in deeply, slowly, breathing in. It's enjoyable. Enjoy that without expectation, and you will just drop into samadhi when you least expect it. And once you have sampled, experienced that, don't crave for it to happen again, because then you bring trying back into the equation, because it won't. But relax. I know it's happened once, it will happen again, and it will. It takes time, it takes practice. As long as you recognize you've got into a rut, again, compare it to a relationship, spice it up a little. You'll never get bored of the breath, but you might want to just do some body investigation. It's the next best thing to the breath because it's still in bringing you into this body and into the current moment. The point of watching the breath is because it's present here and now, and it's directly affecting and part of your bodily experience in the present moment. This is why it's the ideal meditation object that the Buddha himself used to achieve enlightenment. If you need to spice things up, then go through the parts of the body, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth and skin, and then look at the bones. Think of the bag of skin containing all of this juices and flesh and horrible things. And this isn't to put you off yourself or other people, but to realistically see things how they are. And it brings your awareness with that sense to what you are. And then also makes the appeal of deeper level samadhis so much greater because they are so away from bodily experience. When you are away from the experience of the 5 senses of hearing, smelling, tasting and touching, and when you can develop samadhi so deeply that even thought is not interrupting your passaddhi, your peace and tranquility, then you really have freed yourself from the experience of those 5 khandhas, the body and the thinking mind. And this will result in you coming back time and time again to that beautiful state. So you're doing the work, well done. Don't worry about it. Don't try too hard. Enjoy what you have, and it will get better and better. Relax. Let it go. Let go of everything you're trying. And I think, subscriber, you wrote in with the following question. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds that it applies to this first question. If it's another subscriber that's come in with the next question, then thank you also, because it leads on nicely. So the next question, I hope that answers the first question. In the ＡNΑΠΑΝΑSATI, mindfulness of the breath, that is, sutta, the Buddha gave precise instructions with 16 steps of breathing meditation. Why is this form of āNΑPΑNASATI not taught by monks? Is it too difficult or too high for us lay people to practice this form of āNAPANASATI? How to understand the 16 steps? Well, I think āNAPANASATI meditation is taught by monks, but you're saying is this form, thereby I think you're referring to the 16 steps. All the Buddha was trying to do, all the Buddha successfully did in this sutta was break down the idea of āNAPANASATI, mindfulness of the breath, into 16 steps in order to identify its constituent parts and for us to understand it. It isn't the method. It sounds like it's the method if you read it that way. If you hear funny noises, it's the kapya. He's a layperson and I don't know how old he is, but he's on his phone a lot. Hopefully someone talking, I can hear it, you probably can't. The breaking it down into 16 steps is to help better understand the process of first knowing the breath as you breathe in. Is it deep? Is it shallow? Is it long? Is it short? Is it fast? Is it slow? Hello? Excuse me? Oh, you can't hear me. This is India. Then you bring it back to bodily feelings. Does it make your body feel good? Is it feeling more satiated, calmer? Is it settling physically? And then you bring it into the mental feelings and formations associated with that feeling of relaxed, calm, peace and comfort in the body, and how that makes the mind settle and become calm and relaxed. This is how he breaks it down into 16 steps. Now, monks may not teach specifically that because they are in front of you and they are asking you to sit and maybe just observe the breath as it comes in through the nose and as it goes out through the nose. In through the nose and out through the nose. And let the rest follow. Much like I was saying in the previous question, let go of all of these ideas, of all of these labels, of all of these stages, and just let the natural flow of your practice achieve the results. It doesn't matter what they are or what you call them. Eventually you will get there. When you eventually become enlightened and attain to Nibbana, there is no name, there is no description. We call it Nibbana, but it has no it has no definition in itself. It's not of this worldly experience. It's arupa, it's outside of bodily experience, and it's outside of mental formations and experience, not associated with anything we're used to or have experienced in the past. So there is no sense in labeling each and every step other than a way of writing down an explanation as to how one should be observing the breath, and then observing the effect of the breath bodily, and then observing the effect of the breath mentally. So this is the principle behind those 16 steps, and I think it can be laboured too much in some forms of the practice, in some forms of teaching, because people are then just thinking about, is this step? You actually go on to say, I think, you say, I haven't got that written down, you've learned all of the steps off by heart. Well, that's very good. and, you know, well done for learning them. It's more than I know. I'm giving you a very rough overview. But it isn't necessary. It's like knowing the name of every village between this city and the next city. All you need to know is the city you're going to and the direction there. You don't need to know the name of every village, hamlet, county in between. You don't need to know the name of the mayor in each town hall. It's not necessary. You just need to know the route. And if you notice something on the way, oh, this is a nice village, I'll stop there. Or this is a nice town, I can get this there, it's great here. It's all well and good. And you can associate it with something you've learned from the books in the past. But that's just an intellectual understanding. It's not an actual appreciation of what you're gaining from your practice. I hope that makes sense. I'm a little distracted, to be honest with you, with this funny noise in the background. But I kind of trying to exercise some form of equanimity and not get up and go and say anything about it. So I've answered those two questions there, and this one about insects. Let me go back to what I tried to answer in the last video that didn't work. No, I haven't got those questions. I've only got... I think there's time for one more. I've done this, what was the first thing you wake up? Please excuse me. Oh, okay, this is a good one. It can be really difficult as a lone practitioner without... They're all good ones, actually, but this is a good question that I can... Supanyo, I wonder if you might kindly ask Kapir to... He's no, on his phone. Shh. Him, he's on the phone talking all the time. It's kind of putting me off. You could a little. Okay. It can be really difficult as a lone practitioner without a teacher to consult. However, I'm not called to go forth, but I'm dedicated to the practice, so I do the best I can. But I'm struggling with the joking around, which I guess would be part of idle chat. It is hard, as humour is part of my character, and it is hard to leave it behind. Any suggestions? Okay, can be really difficult as a lone practitioner without a teacher to consult. Well, I'm not a teacher, but I can help you, and you can consult me, as you were asking me this question, anytime you like. So if that's of any assistance, any comfort, any assurance, or if there's any way I can encourage you in your practice, as with anyone else watching, I'm very happy to do so. That is the entire purpose and point to making these videos and these talks, that I can encourage you to practice and help you with Sila, Samadhi and Panya on your path towards Nibbana. With regards to your joking around, and I think you're referring to when you're staying in a monastery or amongst other practitioners, if I remember rightly. I've kind of summed up the question and perhaps left too much out on this occasion. Any suggestions? Yes. Well, follow those 5 steps that I spoke about before in the previous talk. Before you say anything at all, firstly, is it timely? Is it the right time to be saying what you're about to say? Now, this can be with regards to anything from a joke to an admonishment, telling someone off. It doesn't matter what it is you're going to say, even a compliment towards someone. Is it timely? Is it the right time to say what you're about to say? Secondly, is it truthful? Are you telling the truth? Thirdly, the tone in which you say it, how you say it, means so much. Not only the voice, but the body language. It's very difficult sometimes. Me trying to explain then to Supanyo this, it didn't work. But it's very difficult when one is exercising restraint. One could just shout, "Shut up!" You know, like on the old It Ain't Half Hot Mum TV series of the 70s of this fellow in India who was a sergeant major. It was quite a terrible program at the time, and still is, I suppose. But I can understand where the writer was coming from on that. With all the noise and hustle and bustle around him, this loud man would go, "Shut up!" like this. And you can understand where that writer was coming from with that. But this is not right speech. This is not practicing those 5 things, because it's the third aspect of how you say it, tone. And then, so you say it kindly. And then the fourth thing is it helpful? Is it useful, what you're saying? Now, with regards to joking around, if you're simply making a joke to cheer people up, a good joke you've heard, and you know it will make everyone happy, and it will soften the atmosphere, it'll help with people to relax, then it's useful, isn't it? It's helpful. Often, some speakers will lead their begin their speech or whatever the subject with some light-hearted humour. Shakespeare, in his writings, began all his plays with something unrelated to the tale that was to follow, some joke, some light-hearted drama help, often because it was to cover the period when late arrivals to the show, so they didn't miss any of the key points of the story. It was entertaining the people who were there on time whilst you waited for the audience to appear. This was Shakespeare's idea, but it also opens people up. So it can be useful to tell jokes. And some monks do that. And if you're good at telling jokes, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's just this idle, as you've referred to, idle chat, and you are joking around because it's, let's say, a little nervous reaction, you feel you have to fill the silence with something. And if you've got nothing useful, so getting back to this point number 4, to say sometimes you'll replace it with just a joke. And often jokes, remember, can be at the expense of somebody else, the expense of somebody else's feelings. So be very careful. We're all about no harm. And even in joke, it is still harmful if it's at someone else's expense. And then the 5th of these 5 things, so timely, truthful, tone, helpful, useful. And the 5th is whatever you're saying has to come from your own experience and ways of behavior. No, there's no point, you see, for me, if I was sitting here talking to you about meditation, talking to you about sila, talking to you about samadhi, meditation, so moral virtue, meditation, and panya, developing wisdom, or wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. If I didn't do any of those things, or try any of those things at least, then it wouldn't be coming from the right place, would it? It'd be like reading a book to you. Well, you can read the book yourself. What I'm sharing with you is my own experience. So really, that 5th one needs to be experiential. Now, often if you're just joking around, silly behaviour, it's imagination. Unless it's for the good use of breaking the ice, lightening the atmosphere for more serious things to come, then avoid it. So simply follow those 5 steps. That's my suggestion, and you can't go wrong. That must be time up for now. Time for me to have a little late, but a cup of tea before evening puja, chanting, which I'm going to once again make another attempt to put on YouTube live. This will be the 3rd time, I think. No, maybe 4th or 5th. But let's say 3rd, and we say 3rd time lucky, don't we? I hope there's something useful in there. If there is, please, I hope you can use it. If not, leave it alone, let it go, and don't worry about it. And any more questions or comments, please send them in. That is useful to me, and it is kind of you. Thank you for watching. Namo Buddhaya.